Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. So in today's video, we are going to dedicate this video to the Game Boy Pi. For the people who are not familiar to it, this is basically a Raspberry Pi inside a Game Boy shell. There are a lot of different versions out there. There are a lot of different creators of these things, but I wanted to do a quick overview. I did both the, let's say, the normal version and the special edition. I did separate reviews about these products, so if you want to have an in-depth review, don't forget to check out the full review here on the channel. Become one of the Wicked family, of course, and hit that little bell and subscribe, my friends, because awesome to have you here. If you're into these handhelds, I have a lot of stuff going on with handhelds, but I just wanted to do a quick wrap up and just in comparison and what are the differences and what are you going to get with the Game Boy Pis, because these things are freaking expensive. Alright, so let's start with this one, because I want to talk about this one first. Alright, so let's take a closer look, or better said, a quick look to the Game Boy Pi. This is the basic version, and the reason why I'm saying basic, as you can see already here, we're having 6 buttons over here, and this one even includes 2 back buttons. This thing has 2 back buttons. It's of course a little bit depending how the creator makes these Game Boy and how you can buy it, of course. So what I did notice with AliExpress, for example, they are not selling this version anymore, or they are not, let's say, put for sale that often. I picked it up on the local site, a guy made it, and there's quite some differences. So for example, this thing comes with an LCD display, so not an IPS, for example, like this one. So if you look at, let's say, the build quality and everything you're going to get, it's there's a little bit depending who makes it, of course, because if you look at the D-pad, it is very clickish and it feels quite different if you look at the membrane, for example. But nevertheless, let's boot it up and let's grab ourselves the next system, the one from Funny Playing. Yes, because this system, as you can see, it has 6 buttons at front. I really love this simply because you're having all the buttons that needed for fighting games. Sadly, this one doesn't come with back buttons, as you can see. So we're having basically the same amount of buttons like this version. So what is the difference? If you look at the display itself, here's where we're going to find a little bit more, let's say, a better display than this one. It's still booting up. The view angle of this display is a little bit better than this version. I still have this little interference. You can, let's say, get it out of the system if you're having a lot of interference by adjusting the volume. But of course, it is not the best way to go to. So the D-pad, I love the D-pad. This thing feels not as squishy like this one or clickish. So that is a little bit of a big difference. The quality, how it's made, as you can see, the cartridge itself is 3D printed compared with this one. This is actually just a fake Game Boy cartridge that they put a Raspberry Pi label on. Same story. You cannot, let's say, you cannot detach this, but as you can see, we're having an SD card in this. So the build way is totally different. Here we have the micro USB for charging, and here we have the SD card. So if it comes to, let's say, connections, here we have, it's the same little story. Volume, we're having the audio control. Both have the hole over here. That's a little bit of a shame. And this one have the SD card over here, and here we have the micro USB. So I think that's more like the difference between what kind of PCB and the way how they added to the system. Here we have the battery. As you can see, this thing is way smaller. I think it's around 2000 milliamps, so not that big. A little bit of a shame. The build quality itself, I really like it. Plays very good. As you can see, it has a very decent screen. Of course, we're a little spoiled with the IPS screens, or I am. It runs PlayStation, so basically these are both running on a Pi, just basically a smaller version of the Raspberry Pi number 3. And last but not least, this is the familiar LCL Game Boy. And as you already can see, this thing is more like a deluxe edition. There are quite some different versions out there. For example, this thing has 2 back buttons. We even having with 4. We having the version with normal round buttons. I really love these because when you're holding it, it's very easy to press the buttons. What is also a big difference is the build quality. This thing's weighs way more than the other models I'm having here. We're having 6 buttons, we have even having an analog stick, is a little bit compared with the PS Vita. The D-pad feels more clickish than this one, but again, this is more like what kind of rubbery or membrane they are using. It goes on exactly the same way, but what you can see before, this is a very funny example. If you look at the button, this is more like the original button they are using for the on and off switch, but this is more like a switch over here. We're having the LED that goes on that indicates the battery life, so that's a little bit of a deluxe extra. We're having the micro USB for charging, but what you can see with the LCL, it has a beautiful, beautiful IPS screen. The D-pad plays perfectly, I can say that. I really love the 6 button, select start. To be honest, I am not a big fan of this little joystick. As you can see, it's always in the way when pressing the select button. The speaker's quite loud. We're having even an Ethernet connection, so if you want to transfer files. Volume control is over here. Great example, if you look at the battery, it's got a 4000 milliamp battery, if I'm recalling. It depends, of course, what version they are going to add. Here we have a little CF card. We're having the volume control and the USB with all the different versions. Basically, that's more of the same. But what you can see, this thing comes with a very nice new menu. Of course, the skin, you can just change it out if you want to. But basically, it depends a little bit what kind of version you're having. We're having now the Raspberry Pi 3, we're having the 3A Plus. There are quite some different versions out there, but it depends what is the seller offering. And of course, how big, how better, or how you, let's say, how more options you want, the more expensive it's going to get. Okay, so I wanted to do a comparison with the 2 Game Boys, let's say the more older versions. And you can see that even with this cheaper LCD, the view angle is pretty decent compared to this one. You can see it's a little bit washed out already when you're moving it from and watching it from the side. And that is something that I think that is will ruin your experience if it comes to the Game Boy Pi. So if it comes to the Game Boy Pi, let's move these aside and you can see this screen. Let's be honest, if you're buying a Pi based system and you want to spend some money, the IPS screen is something that you really need to have. Alright, so I'll give you a quick demo of the gameplay and how the display works and looks. This thing goes freaking loud. But what you can see here, this is the experience that you want to have when you're playing old games on the go, on the Game Boy Pi. But if you want to see the full reviews of the devices, I have a big playlist of all the handhelds I've reviewed, so don't forget to check it out. And let's go to the final conclusion. But if you ask the question, what is the best Game Boy Pi handheld to buy? I think it's just clear, don't you think so? The LCL has a very nice product. If you look at how it's made, how everything looks, it sounds great, it looks great, and this is the experience you want to have. You even have an analog stick for the people who love analog sticks, for example, with fighting games. The display itself, as you can see, it looks beautiful. I can't think about anything bad about it. And if you look at this version I've bought personally, and if you see this version, there is always something that is not perfect. For example, the display, or you're missing out buttons, or the sound is not that great. But this thing, I love it. So this is basically the best Game Boy Pi you can get. Yeah, let me know what you think of this. I want to thank you for watching. Consider subscribing. It would be great to have you in the Wicked family. So thumbs up for this video, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the little bell, because I have a lot of these handheld reviews and comparisons coming up. And let's see you in the next video.